The deep space around the outer edge of the Sol system was quiet and cold. Nothing moved here except the slow dance of distant asteroids and the gentle pull of gravity from the yellow star that humans called their sun. This was about to change. Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Exploration Fleet stood on the bridge of his ship, the Crystalline Dawn. His tall, thin body moved with the grace that all Zephyrians possessed. His skin had a soft blue glow that pulsed gently with his heartbeat. Large, dark eyes studied the star charts that floated in the air before him. The Zephyrians had been exploring space for over 1,000 years. They had met 43 different species during their travels. Each meeting had been peaceful and wonderful. Today they hoped to meet number 44. The science officer, a young female named Nelshaw, turned from her crystal console. Her voice was soft and musical like all Zephyrian voices. "Commander, we are picking up artificial signals from the third planet of this system. The signals show intelligence and technology." Veltar's eyes brightened with excitement. "What kind of signals, Nelshaw?" "Radio waves, electromagnetic pulses, and something else," Nelshaw said as she touched the glowing crystals on her panel. "The signals are complex and organized. There is definitely intelligent life here. For the Zephyrians, this was the best news possible. They lived to explore and make friends with new species. Their whole culture was built around learning and sharing knowledge. War was something they had read about in old history books but never experienced. Violence was not part of their nature. They solved problems with talking and thinking, not fighting. "Set course for the third planet," Veltar ordered. "Send out our standard greeting signal. Use the mathematical sequences that have worked with other species." The Crystalline Dawn moved forward through space. Its crystal hull caught the light from the distant sun and threw rainbows in all directions. The ship was beautiful to look at, designed more for art than for any kind of combat. Like all Zephyrian ships, it had no weapons. Why would they need weapons when they had never met a hostile species? 3 hours later, something appeared on their sensors that made Nelshaw gasp. "Commander, there is a ship approaching us. It is much different from anything we have seen before." On the main viewing crystal, a human ship came into view. The UES Iron Resolve was not beautiful like the Zephyrian vessel. It was gray and angular, built with straight lines and sharp edges. To Zephyrian eyes, it looked strange and somewhat ugly, but they did not judge other species by their appearance. Every race built things differently. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the Iron Resolve. He was a man in his 40s with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. He had been in space for most of his adult life and had seen many strange things, but this was his first time meeting aliens. His hand stayed steady as he watched the alien ship on the main screen. "Captain, we are receiving a signal," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her position at the communications station. Amy was young with red hair and green eyes. She was the best at languages on the ship. "The signal contains mathematical patterns, prime numbers, geometric sequences, and basic physics equations." "They are trying to talk to us," Captain Morrison said. "Send back the same patterns to show we understand. Then add some of our own mathematical sequences." Chief Communications Officer Ryan Blake worked at his console to send the reply. Ryan was a tall man with black hair who had worked on first contact procedures for years. He had dreamed of this moment but never thought it would really happen. "Signal sent, Captain. We should know soon if they can understand us." The two ships drifted closer to each other in the darkness of space. Both crews watched and waited. On the Crystalline Dawn, the Zephyrians were excited and happy. They had made contact with a new species. This was what they lived for. They began preparing gifts and cultural exchanges. On the Iron Resolve, the humans were more careful but also excited. They had protocols for first contact that they had practiced many times. They wanted to make a good impression and avoid any misunderstandings that could lead to problems. "We are receiving another signal," Amy reported. "This one contains images and sounds. I think they are trying to show us their language and culture." Captain Morrison nodded. "Record everything and start working on translation. Send them some of our basic language data in return. Keep it simple and friendly." For the next several hours, the two ships exchanged information. The process was slow but exciting. Both species were learning about each other. The Zephyrians were amazed by human creativity and the complex emotions they could see in human art and music. The humans were fascinated by Zephyrian mathematics and their beautiful crystal technology. Nelshaw managed to translate enough of the human language to send a basic message. "We are the Zephyrians. We come in peace. We want to learn about you and share knowledge." When Amy received this message and translated it, the bridge of the Iron Resolve erupted in quiet celebration. "Captain, they are peaceful explorers like us. They want to meet and exchange information." Captain Morrison smiled for the first time since the alien ship had appeared. "Send them our coordinates for a formal meeting. Tell them we also come in peace and want to learn about them." The reply came back quickly. The Zephyrians agreed to meet. They suggested a location in space between their current positions where both ships could come together safely. They also sent images of their delegation and asked to see images of the human delegation. "This is going better than we hoped," Ryan said as he coordinated the communications. "They seem as excited to meet us as we are to meet them." Commander Veltar stood on his bridge looking at the images of the humans. They looked so different from Zephyrians, but their messages showed intelligence and kindness. This would be another successful first contact, he was sure. The humans seemed peaceful and curious, just like every other species they had met. "Prepare the ceremonial gifts," Veltar told his crew. "Choose our best crystal artwork and our most important scientific discoveries to share with them. This is a historic moment for both our species." Neither ship knew that this meeting would change everything. The humans thought they were meeting another peaceful explorer species. The Zephyrians thought they were meeting another gentle scientific culture like themselves. Both were about to learn how wrong they could be. But for now, in this moment before the meeting, both species felt only excitement and hope for a bright future together among the stars. 3 days had passed since the first contact between the humans and Zephyrians. Both ships had moved to the agreed meeting point in the empty space between their original positions. The location was far from any planets or asteroids, a safe neutral zone where both species could meet without worry. Commander Veltar stood in the main shuttle bay of the crystalline dawn. Around him, his best diplomats and scientists prepared for the historic meeting. They wore their finest ceremonial robes made from materials that changed color in the light. Each Zephyrian carried gifts that represented the best of their culture. Crystal sculptures that sang when touched, mathematical formulas that described the beauty of the universe, and star charts showing the locations of all the peaceful species they had met. "This is our 44th first contact," Veltar told his team. "Each one has brought new friends and new knowledge to our people. Today will be no different." Nelsha checked her translation device one more time. The past 3 days had been spent learning the human language. It was complex and full of strange sounds, but she was confident she could communicate well enough for basic diplomacy. "Their language is fascinating, Commander. They have so many words for conflict and struggle, but also many words for love and creativity." The Zephyrian shuttle, called Harmony's Edge, was as beautiful as their main ship. It looked like a giant crystal that could fly through space. The inside was filled with soft light and gentle music. Everything was designed to make visitors feel peaceful and welcome. On the human ship, Captain Morrison was also preparing for the meeting. He stood in the shuttle bay with his senior officers. Lieutenant Amy Carter carried the translation computers that would help with communication. Chief Communications Officer Ryan Blake had recordings of human music and art to share with the aliens. Dr. Lisa Park, the ship's chief scientist, brought examples of human technology and scientific achievements. "Remember, this is about building trust and understanding," Captain Morrison told his team. "These aliens have been nothing but friendly so far. Let's keep it that way." The human shuttle was very different from the alien one. It was built for function, not beauty. Gray metal walls, practical seats, and equipment that was designed to work, not to look pretty. But it was clean and well-maintained, showing the care that humans put into their tools. The two shuttles met at the halfway point between the ships. The Zephyrian shuttle docked with the human shuttle, and the airlock systems connected. Both sides had checked that the air and environment would be safe for the other species. Commander Veltar was the first to step through the airlock into the human shuttle. His tall, blue glowing form moved gracefully in the lower gravity. His large eyes took in every detail of the human technology around him. Captain Morrison stepped forward to greet him. "Welcome aboard," Captain Morrison said slowly and clearly. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Iron Resolve," Nelshaw translated quickly, and Veltar responded in his musical voice. "I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Exploration Fleet, Ship Crystalline Dawn. We are honored to meet you and your people." The first few minutes were awkward, as both sides tried to understand each other's customs. The humans wanted to shake hands, but Zephyrians touched their foreheads together as a greeting. Both sides adapted quickly, and soon everyone was smiling and making friendly gestures. Dr. Lisa Park was fascinated by the Zephyrian technology. Their translation device was a small crystal that seemed to understand not just words but meanings and emotions. Their scientific instruments were beautiful works of art that also functioned perfectly. "How do you make your crystals grow in such perfect patterns?" she asked through the translator. The Zephyrian scientist, a male named Cathera, was happy to explain. "We do not make them grow. We ask them to grow. All matter has a natural desire for harmony and beauty. We simply help it find the right shape." This concept was completely new to the humans. They had never thought of matter as having desires or feelings. But the proof was right in front of them. The Zephyrian crystals were more perfect than anything humans could manufacture. Amy Carter was working with Nelshaw to improve the translation systems. As they shared more language data, communication became easier and more natural. "Your people must love to talk," Nelshaw said with what humans would recognize as a laugh. "You have so many different ways to say the same thing." "We have many different cultures on our planet," Amy explained. "Each one developed its own way of speaking." "What about your people?" "We have only one culture," Nelshaw replied. "All Zephyrians think and act in harmony. We have no need for different ways of speaking because we all want the same things." This seemed wonderful to the humans, but also a little strange. Human diversity was one of their greatest strengths, but these aliens had achieved perfect unity. Both sides found the other fascinating. Captain Morrison and Commander Veltar discussed their respective journeys through space. The Zephyrians had been exploring for much longer than humans, but they moved slowly and carefully. They spent years studying each new species before making contact. Humans had only been in deep space for a few decades, but they moved quickly and took more risks. "Your people are very brave," Veltar observed. "You travel far from your home with small ships and few resources." "We have to be," Morrison replied. "Space is dangerous and we need to be ready for anything." This comment made Veltar curious. "What kind of dangers do you face in space?" Morrison thought for a moment. "Asteroid fields, radiation storms, equipment failures, hostile environments." "The usual things. But what about hostile species?" Veltar asked. Morrison looked confused. "We have never met any other species before you." "What do you mean by hostile?" Veltar realized the translation might be wrong. "Species that would try to harm you or take your resources." "Oh," Morrison said. "We do not know if such species exist, but we prepare for the possibility. It is better to be ready and not need weapons than to need weapons and not have them." The word weapons did not translate well into Zephyrian. Nelshaw had to explain the concept using several different words. "Tools for causing harm, devices designed to hurt or kill, methods of forcing others to do what you want." The Zephyrians looked puzzled by these concepts. In their 43 previous first contacts, they had never encountered a species that even thought about such things. Every intelligent race they had met was peaceful by nature. Violence was not part of advanced civilization. "You mean some species might try to hurt you?" Cathera asked with obvious confusion. "It is possible," Dr. Park said. "On our own planet, we have had to deal with aggressive animals and natural disasters. We learned to protect ourselves." "But surely intelligent beings would never harm each other," Veltar said. The humans exchanged glances. This was getting into uncomfortable territory. "Well," Captain Morrison said carefully, "humans have not always been peaceful with each other. We have had conflicts in our past." "Conflicts." Nelshaw repeated the word slowly. "Wars," Amy said, trying to find a better translation. "Fighting between different groups of humans." The Zephyrians stared at the humans in shock. The concept of intelligent beings fighting each other was so foreign to them that they struggled to understand it. It was like trying to explain color to someone who had been blind from birth. "You fought with others of your own species?" Veltar asked quietly. "Yes, but we have mostly moved past that," Morrison said quickly. "We are united now and explore space together in peace." But the damage was done. The Zephyrians had learned something about humans that changed everything. These beings came from a world where intelligence did not automatically mean peace. They had experience with violence and conflict. They carried weapons because they expected to need them. For the first time in their long history of exploration, the Zephyrians had met a species that scared them. Not because the humans had threatened them, but because they represented something the Zephyrians had never imagined, a peaceful species that was also capable of war. The meeting continued for several more hours, but the mood had changed. The Zephyrians were still polite and friendly, but they were also watchful and careful. They began to notice things about human technology that they had missed before. Tools that could be weapons, materials that were stronger than necessary for peaceful purposes, designs that suggested the humans expected their equipment to be damaged or destroyed. When the meeting ended and both sides returned to their ships, the humans felt it had gone well. They had made contact with a peaceful alien species and exchanged valuable information. Captain Morrison filed a report saying that first contact had been successful. On the Zephyrian ship, the mood was very different. Commander Veltar called an emergency meeting of his senior staff. For the first time in their history, they had met a species that might be dangerous, not because they were evil, but because they came from a world where peace was not natural. "What do we do now?" Nelsha asked. Veltar looked out at the human ship through the viewing crystal. "We learn more about them. We need to understand what we are dealing with." The diplomatic talks had continued for 2 more days after the first meeting. Both species were working hard to understand each other better. The humans were fascinated by Zephyrian science and their peaceful culture. The Zephyrians were trying to understand how a species could be both intelligent and violent at the same time. Commander Veltar stood on his bridge, looking at the data his science teams had gathered about human technology. The more they learned, the more confused they became. Human tools were built much stronger than they needed to be. Their ships had redundant systems that seemed designed to keep working, even after taking severe damage. Everything suggested that humans expected their equipment to be attacked or destroyed. "Nelsha, what have you learned from studying their language patterns?" Veltar asked. The young science officer looked up from her crystal console. Her usual bright expression was troubled. "Commander, their language contains thousands of words related to conflict, war, and violence. They have detailed vocabularies for different types of weapons, military tactics, and combat situations. No peaceful species should need so many words for such things." Kethera, the senior scientist, added his own disturbing findings. Their mathematics include extensive calculations for trajectories, explosive forces, and structural damage. These are not the mathematical interests of a peaceful civilization. Veltar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature on his ship. In 43 previous first contacts, they had never encountered anything like this. Every other species had mathematics focused on beauty, harmony, and understanding the universe. Humans seemed to use their intelligence to calculate how to destroy things. On the Iron Resolve, Captain Morrison was preparing for the next phase of the cultural exchange. The Zephyrians had asked to see more examples of human technology in ships. Morrison thought this was a reasonable request. He wanted to show these peaceful aliens that humans were also advanced and sophisticated. "Contact Captain Rodriguez on the Discovery," Morrison told Ryan Blake. "Ask him to join us here. The aliens want to see our scientific capabilities." The UES Discovery was a research vessel that had been exploring the outer system when the aliens arrived. Captain Ben Rodriguez was a scientist himself, a man who had spent his career studying stars and planets. His ship was one of the most advanced scientific platforms that humans had built. Dr. Lisa Park was excited about the opportunity to show off human science. "The Discovery has some of our best research equipment. The aliens will be impressed by our astronomical sensors and our geological analysis tools." Amy Carter was less certain. She had been listening carefully to the alien conversations that the translation system could pick up. "Captain, I think the aliens are more worried about us than we realized. Some of their discussions suggest they are concerned about our military capabilities. We have been completely honest with them about our peaceful intentions," Morrison replied. "They have nothing to worry about." But Amy was not convinced. The more she learned about Zephyrian culture, the more she realized how different they were from humans. They had never experienced war or conflict. To them, the very idea of intelligent beings fighting each other was horrifying. 2 hours later, the Discovery arrived at the meeting coordinates. The research ship was larger than the Iron Resolve and painted in the white and blue colors of the Earth Science Consortium. It looked peaceful and friendly, designed for exploration and discovery rather than combat. Captain Rodriguez contacted the Iron Resolve as soon as he dropped out of hyperspace. "Jake, good to see you again. I understand we are making history today. That is right, Ben, Morrison replied. Our new friends want to see human scientific capabilities. Your ship is perfect for showing them what we can do. The Zephyrians watched the new human ship appear on their sensors. At first, they were relieved. This vessel looked much more like what they expected from a peaceful scientific species. It had sensors and communication arrays rather than the harder, more angular design of the military ship. Perhaps we were wrong about them, Nelshaw said hopefully. This ship looks like it was built for research, not combat. But Cathara was already running detailed scans of the new vessel. What he found made his blood run cold. Commander, you need to see this. The scan results appeared on the main crystal display. The Discovery was indeed a research ship, but it carried enough weapons to destroy a small city. Missile launchers were hidden behind panels designed to look like sensor arrays. Energy weapons were built into what appeared to be scientific instruments. The ship's hull was armored with materials that could withstand attacks that would vaporize most Zephyrian vessels. This is their idea of a peaceful research ship, Cathara whispered. Veltar stared at the scan results in disbelief. Even the humans' scientific vessels were armed for war. What kind of universe did these beings come from where scientists needed weapons? Every Zephyrian research ship was completely defenseless, protected only by their reputation for peace and their advanced diplomatic skills. Captain Rodriguez was happy to give the aliens a tour of his ship. He was proud of the Discovery and its scientific achievements. The Zephyrians sent over a small delegation led by Nelshaw and Cathara. The tour started in the main laboratory where Rodriguez showed them the stellar analysis equipment. The Zephyrians were impressed by the sophisticated instruments and the detailed star charts that humans had created. For a few minutes, they began to hope that they had been wrong about human nature. Your people have done excellent work mapping this region of space, Cathara told Rodriguez through the translation device. Thank you, Rodriguez replied. We have been exploring for only a few decades, but we try to be thorough. Nelshaw was examining one of the analysis stations when she noticed something strange. Captain Rodriguez, what is this control panel for? Rodriguez looked where she was pointing and seemed slightly embarrassed. Oh, that is the defensive systems control. All our ships carry some protection in case we run into dangerous situations. What kind of dangerous situations? Cathara asked. Well, hostile alien species, space pirates, that sort of thing, Rodriguez said casually. The Zephyrians exchanged worried glances. Space pirates, hostile species. These humans expected to find enemies everywhere they went. They had built their entire space program around the assumption that the universe was full of threats. May we see these defensive systems? Nelshaw asked carefully. Rodriguez hesitated. He was not supposed to show military equipment to aliens, but these beings seemed so peaceful and innocent. I suppose it would not hurt to show you the basic systems. He led them to a section of the ship that the Zephyrians' scanners had identified as heavily armed. When Rodriguez opened the panels, they revealed missile launchers, energy weapons, and defensive systems that could protect the ship from massive attacks. These weapons could destroy an entire space station, Cathara said quietly. Well, yes, but we only use them for protection, Rodriguez explained. Space is dangerous and we have to be prepared for anything. Nelshaw was having trouble breathing. The humans called these defensive weapons, but they were more powerful than anything in the Zephyrian fleet, and this was just a research ship. What would their military vessels be like? Captain Rodriguez, she said slowly, what would you consider a heavily armed military ship? Rodriguez thought for a moment. Well, a ship like the Devastator would be our most advanced military vessel. It carries enough firepower to... He stopped when he saw the expressions on the aliens' faces. Enough firepower to what? Cathara whispered. To engage an entire enemy fleet, Rodriguez finished quietly. The Zephyrians spent the rest of the tour in shocked silence. Everything they saw confirmed their worst fears. Even the humans' scientific instruments could be used as weapons. Their computers contained detailed information about military tactics and combat strategies. Their medical bay was equipped to treat injuries from weapons that the Zephyrians could not even imagine. When they returned to their ship, Nelshaw and Cathara reported to Commander Veltar immediately. The news was worse than anyone had expected. Their research ships carry enough weapons to conquer most civilizations, Cathara reported, and they speak casually about military vessels that are even more powerful. Veltar felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. As the commander of a first contact mission, it was his job to assess whether new species were safe to approach. For the first time in Zephyrian history, the answer was clearly no. "Commander," Nelshaw said quietly, "they want to show us one of their military ships." The bridge fell silent. Every Zephyrian present understood what this meant. They were about to see the true face of human military power, and they were terrified of what they might discover. "Contact Captain Morrison," Veltar said finally. "Tell him we accept his offer to see their military capabilities." As the message was sent, every Zephyrian on the bridge knew that their universe was about to change forever. They had spent 1,000 years believing that intelligence naturally led to peace. The humans were about to prove them horribly wrong. Captain Morrison had been pleased when the Zephyrians asked to see a human military vessel. He believed that showing them the advanced technology and professional capabilities of the human fleet would demonstrate that Earth was a worthy partner for interstellar relations. He had no idea that he was about to give the aliens the most terrifying experience of their entire civilization. "Contact Admiral Stone on the Devastator," Morrison told Ryan. "Blake. Request permission for an alien inspection tour, Admiral." Frank Stone was a veteran of 30 years in space. He commanded the newest and most advanced warship in the human fleet. The UES Devastator represented the cutting edge of human military technology. Stone was proud of his ship and his crew, and he welcomed the chance to show them off to humanity's first alien contact. "Permission granted. Captain Morrison," Stone replied over the communication channel. "We will arrive at your coordinates in 6 hours. I look forward to meeting our new neighbors." On the Zephyrian ship, Commander Veltar was trying to prepare his people for what they were about to see. But how could he prepare them for something that none of them could truly understand? The Zephyrians had no experience with military technology beyond what they had read in ancient historical texts about their own prehistoric past. "Remember," Veltar told his senior staff, "we are here to learn and understand. No matter what we see, we must remain calm and diplomatic." Nelshaw checked the scanning equipment one more time. Their sensors had been upgraded to get the most detailed readings possible of the human military ship. "Commander, are you sure we want to do this? What if what we learn changes everything?" "It has already changed everything," Veltar replied quietly. "We need to know what we are dealing with." The waiting was the worst part. For 6 hours, the Zephyrians imagined what a human military vessel might look like. They pictured something larger and more heavily armed than the research ship that had already shocked them. But their imagination could not prepare them for the reality. When the UES Devastator dropped out of hyperspace, every alarm on the Zephyrian ship began to sound at once. The automatic threat detection systems, designed to warn of dangerous asteroids or stellar phenomena, were screaming warnings about the massive energy signatures they were detecting. "Shut off the alarms," Veltar ordered, but his voice was shaking. On the main viewing crystal, the human warship appeared. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the largest Zephyrian vessel. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, with angular surfaces that seemed designed to deflect attacks. Weapon emplacements were visible all along its length, some so large that they could have been mistaken for small buildings. "By the eternal crystals," Cathara whispered. "It is not a ship. It is a flying fortress." Nelshaw was frantically trying to get accurate sensor readings, but the numbers made no sense. "Commander, the power output from that vessel is greater than our entire home city. The weapon signatures are off our scale." The Devastator moved with surprising grace for something so massive. It took position near the other human ships, and immediately the space around all 3 vessels became filled with electromagnetic fields, sensor sweeps, and communication signals. The human ships were constantly talking to each other, sharing information and coordinating their movements like parts of a single organism. Admiral Stone was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much of war. He stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the alien vessel on his main screen. Colonel Steve Murphy, his security chief, stood beside him along with Dr. Helen Gray, the ship's senior scientist. "Interesting design," Stone commented about the Zephyrian ship. "Looks like it is built for beauty rather than function." "Sir, their ship has no apparent weapons," Murphy reported. "No armor to speak of either. It would not last 10 seconds in a real fight." Dr. Gray was more interested in the peaceful implications. Perhaps they come from a part of space where there are no conflicts. They might not need weapons, Stone nodded thoughtfully. Well, we will show them what human engineering can accomplish. Maybe they have knowledge that can help us build better ships. The Admiral had no idea that the aliens were already terrified just from looking at his ship from a distance. He thought he was about to engage in a friendly cultural exchange. The Zephyrians received an invitation to board the Devastator for a tour. Commander Veltar knew they had to accept, even though every instinct told him to flee as fast as possible. This was a historic moment that would determine the future relationship between their species. I will go myself, Veltar announced. Nelsha and Kethara will accompany me. Commander, that ship could vaporize our entire fleet without effort, Kethara protested. If they decide we are a threat, then it will not matter whether we are on their ship or our own, Veltar replied grimly. The shuttle trip to the human warship was the longest 15 minutes of Nelsha's life. As they approached the massive vessel, she could see details that made her stomach turn. The hull was covered with sensors, weapon ports, and defensive systems. Entire sections of the ship seemed to be dedicated to nothing but destruction. The shuttle bay that received them was larger than most Zephyrian buildings. Human fighters and bombers were lined up in perfect rows, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. Maintenance crews worked on the aircraft with casual efficiency, as if preparing instruments of mass destruction was just another day at work. Admiral Stone met them at the airlock with an honor guard of Marines. The human soldiers stood at attention in their dark uniforms, looking professional and dangerous. Each one carried weapons that could probably penetrate Zephyrian ship hulls. Welcome aboard the Devastator, Stone said through the translation device. I am Admiral Frank Stone, commander of this vessel. Veltar managed to respond politely, but his voice was barely steady. I am Commander Veltar. We are honored to visit your ship. Stone smiled, thinking the aliens were impressed by human technology. Let me show you what humanity has accomplished in military engineering. The tour began in the main corridor of the ship. The walls were lined with displays showing the ship's capabilities and achievements. Battle honors, tactical victories, successful missions to protect human colonies and trade routes. To the humans, these were sources of pride. To the Zephyrians, they were evidence of a species that glorified warfare. The Devastator is our most advanced warship, Stone explained as they walked. She carries a crew of 8,000 and has enough supplies to operate independently for 2 years. 8,000 people dedicated to warfare. The number stunned the Zephyrians. Their entire space fleet had fewer people than this single ship carried. They visited the primary weapon control center, where human officers monitored systems that could destroy planets. The energy cannons were powered by reactors that produced more power than the Zephyrian homeworld used in a year. The missile systems carried warheads that could crack continents. These are our main guns, Colonel Murphy explained, pointing to displays that showed weapon ranges and destructive capabilities. They can engage targets at distances of several light minutes with pinpoint accuracy. Nelsha was having trouble processing what she was seeing. What kind of targets require such powerful weapons? Enemy capital ships, heavily fortified positions, orbital platforms, Murphy listed casually. The big guns are for when you need to make sure something stops existing. Dr. Gray noticed that the aliens seemed disturbed by the tour. Is everything all right? You seem worried about something. Kethara struggled to find words that could explain their horror without giving offense. Your weapons are very powerful. Do you often need to use such force? Not often, Stone replied. But when peace fails, you need to be ready to win decisively. The best way to avoid a war is to be so strong that your enemies do not dare to start one. This philosophy was completely alien to the Zephyrians. They prevented conflicts through understanding and diplomacy, not by threatening massive retaliation. The idea that peace could be maintained through the threat of overwhelming violence was backwards to everything they believed. The tour continued through the ship's defensive systems, its advanced sensors and its tactical coordination centers. Every section revealed new levels of destructive capability. The humans had turned warfare into a science and built machines that could end civilizations. But the worst revelation came when Admiral Stone mentioned, almost casually, that the Devastator was just one ship in a fleet of over 300 similar vessels. We have been building up our defensive capabilities for the past 20 years, he explained. Space is a dangerous place, and humanity has learned to be prepared. Commander Veltar felt his world collapsing around him. 300 ships like this one. Humanity had built a fleet that could conquer the entire galaxy, and they considered it defensive preparation. What did that say about what they expected to face in space? Admiral Stone, Veltar asked quietly, in your opinion, what is the most dangerous threat that humanity might encounter in space? Stone thought for a moment. Probably a hostile alien empire with advanced technology and aggressive expansion plans. Something that would see humanity as a competitor for resources and try to eliminate us before we could become a threat to them. The irony was crushing. The silence on the bridge of the Crystalline Dawn was complete and terrible. Commander Veltar and his team had returned from the human warship an hour ago, but no one had spoken since then. They sat at their stations, staring at the data they had collected, trying to process what they had witnessed. Nelshaw finally broke the silence. Commander, I have finished analyzing the weapon signatures from their ship. Her voice was barely a whisper. The smallest weapons on that vessel could destroy our largest cities. Their main cannons could crack our homeworld in half. Keithara looked up from his own analysis. The power requirements for their systems exceed the total energy output of our entire civilization. They have built a single ship that is more powerful than our whole species. Veltar stood at the main viewing crystal, looking at the human fleet. The three ships hung in space like sleeping giants, beautiful and terrible at the same time. He had spent his entire career making peaceful contact with new species, but this situation was unlike anything in Zephyrian history. Send a priority message to the High Council, he ordered. Maximum encryption. Tell them we have encountered a species that requires immediate attention. As Nelshaw composed the message, Veltar considered their options. They could flee and hope the humans never found the Zephyrian homeworld. They could try to warn other species about the threat. They could attempt to form an alliance against humanity. But each option led to the same conclusion: war with a species that treated planet-killing weapons as standard equipment. The reply from the High Council came faster than expected. The Council of Elders wanted a full report immediately. They had never received a priority alert from a first contact mission before. Commander Veltar, came the voice of Elder Shentai, the oldest and wisest member of the Council. Your message has caused great concern among the Elders. Explain the situation. Veltar took a deep breath and began his report. He described the initial contact, the cultural exchanges, and the growing realization that humans were fundamentally different from every other species they had encountered. He explained the weapon systems, the military philosophy, and the casual way humans talked about warfare. Elder Shentai, Veltar concluded, they have built a civilization around the expectation of conflict. Their peaceful research ships carry enough weapons to conquer most worlds. Their military vessels are beyond our ability to comprehend or resist. The silence from the homeworld lasted for long minutes. Finally, Elder Shentai spoke again. Commander, are you certain of these readings? What you describe seems impossible. I have triple-checked everything, Elder. If anything, I may be underestimating their capabilities. On the human ships, life continued normally. Captain Morrison was writing his daily report, noting that first contact continued to proceed smoothly. The aliens were very interested in human technology and seemed eager to establish formal diplomatic relations. He recommended that Earth prepare a full diplomatic mission to visit the Zephyrian homeworld. Admiral Stone was also pleased with how the day had gone. The aliens had been impressed by the Devastator and had asked many intelligent questions about human engineering and tactics. He thought they might become valuable allies if humanity ever faced a serious threat in space. Neither human commander realized that their actions had triggered a crisis that would reshape galactic politics forever. Back on the Zephyrian ship, the debate was intensifying. The High Council had conferenced in other ship commanders and senior diplomats from across Zephyrian space. For the first time in their peaceful history, they were discussing the possibility of an existential threat to their civilization. We must warn the other species, argued Elder Morlin. If these humans are as dangerous as Commander Veltar reports, everyone needs to know. And what then? Replied Elder Castell. If we rally the galaxy against them, we will only prove that we are the hostile aliens they expect to find. They will see us as a threat and respond accordingly. Commander Veltar listened to the debate and realized that his people were struggling with concepts they had never needed to consider before. How do you deal with a species that is stronger than you? What do you do when diplomacy might not be enough? How do you survive in a universe where peace is not the natural state of intelligent life? Elders, he interrupted, I believe there is another option. The debate stopped as all attention focused on him. These humans are not evil, Veltar continued. They are not conquerors or destroyers by choice. They have built their military strength because they fear meeting a species that would try to destroy them. In their minds, they are the peaceful ones preparing to defend themselves against hostile aliens. What are you suggesting? Elder Shentai asked. We make sure they never have a reason to see us as hostile. We become their allies, their friends, their most trusted partners in space. We make ourselves so valuable to them that the thought of fighting us never enters their minds. The idea was radical and frightening. The Zephyrians had always approached other species as equals, sharing knowledge and culture freely. What Veltar was suggesting was something closer to submission, making themselves useful to a more powerful species in exchange for protection. You are talking about giving up our independence. Elder Morlin protested. I am talking about survival, Veltar replied. If we resist them, they will destroy us without effort. If we ignore them, they may see us as a potential threat and destroy us anyway. But if we ally with them, if we make ourselves useful to their goals, we can survive and even prosper. Nelsha had been listening to the debate while monitoring human communications. Commander, I am picking up a message from the human homeworld. They are sending a full diplomatic mission to establish formal relations with us. This news changed everything. Soon there would be dozens of human ships in Zephyrian space, diplomats and scientists and probably military escorts. The window for making decisions was closing rapidly. Elders, Veltar said urgently, we must decide now. Do we flee and hope they never find us? Do we try to fight them? Or do we embrace them as the most powerful allies we could ever have? Elder Shentai spoke for the council. Commander Veltar, you have seen these humans with your own eyes. You have walked on their warships and spoken with their leaders. What is your recommendation? Veltar looked out at the human fleet one more time. The ships hung in space like sleeping dragons, beautiful and deadly beyond imagination. He thought about the casual way Admiral Stone had described weapons that could end worlds. He remembered the genuine friendliness of Captain Morrison and his crew. These humans were not monsters, but they were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever produced. My recommendation is that we become their closest allies, he said finally. We offer them our friendship, our knowledge, and our support in whatever they choose to do. We make ourselves so valuable to them that they will protect us from any threat. Even if that threat comes from other peaceful species who might oppose human expansion. Elder Castellast Veltar nodded grimly. Even then, better to be the friends of the apex predators than their prey. The vote was close, but the council agreed. The Zephyrians would commit fully to alliance with humanity. They would share their advanced sciences, their knowledge of other species, and their diplomatic skills. In return, they would gain the protection of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Over the next several hours, the Zephyrians began implementing their new strategy. They prepared gifts of their most advanced technology for the human diplomatic mission. They compiled detailed information about every species they had encountered, creating a roadmap for human expansion across the galaxy. They rewrote their first contact protocols to present humanity as their greatest allies and closest friends. When Captain Morrison received the Zephyrian proposal for a formal alliance, he was delighted. These peaceful aliens wanted to share their knowledge of the galaxy and help humanity explore safely. It was better than he had dared to hope. Send a message to Earth, he told Ryan Blake. Tell them we have successfully established diplomatic relations with a friendly alien civilization. They want to form a comprehensive alliance for mutual exploration and protection. As the message was sent, Captain Morrison felt proud of what they had accomplished. Humanity's first contact with aliens had been a complete success. They had gained peaceful, knowledgeable allies who could help them navigate the dangers of galactic civilization. He had no idea that the Zephyrians' alliance was born not from friendship, but from terror. The aliens had looked at human military power and realized that survival meant becoming useful to their new masters. They would spend the rest of their history making sure that humanity never had a reason to turn those terrible weapons against them. In the depths of space, the 3 human ships prepared to escort their new Zephyrian allies back toward Earth. It was the beginning of humanity's expansion into the galaxy, guided by species who were too frightened to do anything but help them succeed. The humans believed they had made friends. The Zephyrians knew they had met their new lords, and across the galaxy, Other peaceful species would soon learn that the universe had changed forever. The apex predators had finally reached the stars, and wisdom lay in submission rather than resistance. The age of human dominance had begun,